I would like to welcome Alex Anderson of Logs Thistle FC to the non-league radio show. Hello, Alex.
Hello, Stephen. How are you doing?
Not bad, not bad. But before finding out about the club, I want to find out a bit about yourself and your role and your background involved with Logs Thistle.
Yeah, of course. So I'm Alex Anderson. I am the secretary of Thistle Football Club, but also the matchday Twitter correspondent, as you were. I've supported the team since I think it was about 8 or 9. I can't remember exactly what season it was, but it was since about 8 or 9, and I think that was just an aversion to. My parents had a sort of aversion to me following one of the old firm. So I think I was sort of railroaded. I actually stay maybe, and I'm not good at yardage, but maybe about 300 yards from the stadium. So the stadium's just down the road. I can hear it on match days when I'm not there, which is very rarely. You can see the floodlights when they're on. It's just a local club. It's the local part of the community. It's a small town. Largs has only got around about 12 to 15,000 people. I've not checked the latest census data, but we've not a massive town by any stretch of the imagination. But I think just supported it since I was there. They've just been going ever since. I think as I've developed into my adult life, I support go to all the Scotland games home and away as well. So that takes up a lot of your financial constraints. So I don't even think if I wanted to get a season ticket at Celtic Park or Ibrox, I don't think I could afford one. I think the girlfriend would have a lot to say about that. But no, I've always loved the club. I've always loved supporting a sort of smaller club. I think going into a place of work and not supporting one of the big two actually gives you the freedom to belittle both when they're losing. So it gives you that freedom to join in with anybody as well now. So I think I enjoy that part of it. And then in terms of actually getting involved physically with the club, I was involved before when I was around 20 and used to run one of the away supporters buses, and kept filling out it. I went to university actually in Stirling and I just couldn't keep up with the commitment anymore. So left in an official capacity for around about a decade and came back earlier on this season when I was asked by the previous club chairman who sadly passed away at Christmas, Derek. He asked me to come back and just said, obviously, there's nobody really running the Twitter feed, and he just wanted me to pick that up. And then after Derek's passing at Christmas, I just wanted to get more involved. And Derek was one of these people that done an everyman at the club, and I suppose he's probably touched on it a bit later on. But there is a lot of roles for even such a team to keep such a small club going, and I think he done about 90% of them. As I said before we started recording, there was a committee meeting tonight, and I'd say there's maybe about 10, 12 people there. And that's the amount of people that we've had on board. I think we've had on board about 6 or 8 of them just to fill the gap. So it shows you a testament to everything that the guy done for the club. And he was certainly the reason that I got back involved. And it's certainly the reason that I'll keep going now. So
I've actually been to Logs when I was at school. That was a long time ago. And I remember...
Just ice cream, isn't it?
Well, it's some sports centre. Where I think Rangers used to train, and then we've got a boat or a ferry across to Millport and cycle around. Is it Millport and cycle around Millport? I think that's what they call it.
I think the island is no good. If this goes out and MD from Millport hears this, I'll get crucified if I get this wrong. But the island is Cumbury and the town is Millport.
Right. So
you can cycle around Cumbury with a bike you purchased from Millport.
Yeah, that's right.
That's usually the way to do it.
That was about 20 odd year ago, 30 odd year ago. God, I'm getting carried away myself. Anyway, back to the football club. You play at, is it Barrfields Park?
It's Barrfields Park, yeah. So Barrfields Park in Pavilion. So if you're going back 30 years, it wouldn't have been there. So Barrfields Park's just a bit of an area. So it's the football stadium that sits on an area of Largs, which is kind of referred to as Barrfields. So they've got a pavilion, which is along the front, which has got a visitor centre in it called the Vikingar now, which is essentially just where the swimming pool and used to be where the cinema was. There's not really much going on in it now, I think, anymore. I think it's just a gym and a swimming pool now. But behind that sits Barrfields. It's for anybody that wants to obviously to look up, it's a traditional looking old style non-league Scottish ground as far as I would see it, and they're a dying breed now. As the sort of the league gets more competitive and then a path. Obviously, we'll probably touch on this later, but as a path to the professional leagues becomes open, these things have been replaced by the sort of bog standard, off the shelf non-league stadia that you do see across Britain nowadays. It's just got a single use stand, running track stuff, but we don't have any of that. We've got the old shed, the old gable-ended shed that's, you've got to watch how hard you kick it. And we've got a long line of old stone terracing that runs round the side, and behind both goals. So there's an area outside of the playing pitch. There's an area for 2 5-a-side pitches behind both goals. So a decent area of land, as it were, which hopefully one day we're able to fill. But Barrfields it's a lovely stadium, and for I think we're popular with ground toppers, and I think I can see why. As I say, as we lose some of, as I say, if everyone's following these leagues, and I'm sure people that will listen to this have followed this grade of football for decades, and they'll be more aware than anyone that these old grounds are going, but we're not going anywhere. But every year we lose another one, or we lose another two to Tesco's or council building flats and moving these teams to other places. And fair enough, about throwing them up a good standard of facility, one that will aid and abet their journey to professional league, should they so wish. But they are losing these old grounds. There'll not be many of them left, I don't think, in about 10, 15 years.
And it says it has a capacity, obviously I'm reading off Wikipedia here, if 4,500, I'm guessing a lot of that will be standing if that was full.
Yes, yeah. I'd hate to try and put a number on how much you could get seated now, because it depends whether if you've got a backside big enough to need the two wooden benches or the three. I'd probably say you could sit. Now again, this is where my maths will fail me, or this is where my lack of engineering knowledge is. I'd say you could probably fit a good couple of hundred at seating. But yeah, 4,500 I used to think was a bit ambitious. But I don't know if you've caught Darvel eliminating Aberdeen. So Darvel are a team in our league, the tier 6 of Scottish football. And again, if we need to go back and explain the tiers, I'm happy to bore you with that.
Darvel, who are in our league, I will talk about the tiers and the promotion, so we'll get to that.
Darvel, who are in our league, I eliminated Aberdeen from the Scottish Cup earlier on in the month, or sorry, last month now that we're into February. And the attendance there was 4,000, and I've always felt that was much smaller than Barrfields. So I'd say 4,500 is if 4,000 with an official SFA ground check is the right number, then I'd say we'd be able to do 6 or 7. You hear the rumours, I mean, obviously, of 12,000 and stuff from 19 Canteen, but even I've seen pictures actually. I've seen there's a picture, I think it's in the 50s that sits in our clubhouse from where we played Clydebank, and I think there's a 5-figure crowd at that, but hard to verify and hard to really tell from an old grainy black and white photo. But I would say, yeah, if Police Scotland and the council are happy with getting 4,000 in Darvel, then by all means, I think you could get 4,500 in Barrfields, no problem.
So, what have you any other facilities around the ground? Is there a bar or a clubhouse or a? Yeah,
so I've worked really hard. Actually, I think this is something that a lot of the teams in our league aspire to be. Is obviously to have an SFA license and to be able to compete in the big Scottish Cup. Unlike, I don't know if I'm not familiar with the entry requirements for the English FA Cup, but I don't believe it's anywhere near as stringent as having to pass various licensing hula hoops. But we've had to improve that. So when we started, so maybe up until about 10 years ago, the facilities were a home dressing room, and away dressing room, and a canteen. We now have a small bar facility which has room for the opposition committee and for fans. Not a lot of room in it. I'd say it probably seats about 30 people. A tight squeeze, but fully licensed. You come in and get a beer and stuff before the game. Obviously not allowed to take it out in Scottish licence and laws prohibit you from taking it outside the cabin, but it's inside the ground. Just not allowed to go into the thingy. And we have recently just converted where our old canteen was into a sort of referees room and medical room, which again is another couple of box ticked for SFA entry requirements. The one thing we probably are missing is match day capable floodlights. So we have a floodlight system, but it wouldn't pass what they deem to be the acceptable level to play a professional game of football. It is suitable for training. And I think there's other worries as well, particularly with the level of light that it gives to the spectators. Which particularly in the stand, I talked about it later, it would be like if I walking about under the cover. But so we are working hard. I think that's for everybody. For all the teams in the league that don't have it or aren't given it by the council as part of the stadia revamp, as they sometimes get, is that it is a big financial outlay. I think they're talking in the region of £100,000 to get that installed at a lot of clubs, and that's just not feasible to get. So I think what you hear a lot of, and again, that's a point I fully take on board, is you do get from people in our leagues asking why we can only play away games on a Wednesday night, or why, for example, this Friday we can play away and we can't play at home. It hits you in the pocket, because I think, again, to come back to the Rangers and Celtic thing, if you could play games on a Friday night, you play games on a Wednesday night, provided they're not playing, you've got a chance to boost your crowd. And we don't have that in terms of facility, but it's not something it's not for lack of trying, it's not for lack of ambition, it's something the club has to continue to work hard to do, has to strive to do it, not be put off by that big figure. There's grants and stuff out there, as I'm sure you probably get tens, hundreds of people come on this podcast and give you the same spiel, whether it's in England or Wales or anywhere else in the world, that these grants are always there. It's the accessing them, and they have to know. Councils, public grant funds, the lottery, they don't advertise what's available. You need to do your own digging, and I think you've got to run a football club as well, remember, so it's where do you find the time? But it is something that particularly a few people at the club just now are running forward with, so hopefully something that we can see at Barrfields in the very near future. Yeah.
And how many teams do you have at Logs from the first down over?
So we have so we used to have I think the thing is, or the difficulty is keeping a specific set of teams stable. So at the moment, we have the men's first team, we have the amateur team, and we have a couple of unders teams. Most recently won the 2008s age group, just recently aligned with the club, and we actually had their coaches down tonight to sort of formalise some of that. So we have went through periods of our time where we've had a full 15 through 21s, and we went through a period of having nothing. So it is, I think, it's the age-old curse of boys grow up, don't they? And they get into other things, and again, small town, or in some examples, boys grow up and they get too good for Thistle, or boys grow up and so we've had a couple of teams fall by the wayside for various reasons, the traditional drinking and going out reasons, and rather more desirable from my perspective anyway. Too many of them went away to whether it's Greenock Morton or Ayr United or Partick Thistle, and we were left unable to successfully adhere to the age group. So only a couple of set age groups, but again, it's something that we've identified that we need to work on. It's something that, particularly if we're going to go down a community club route and go after these grants that I spoke about, that we need to be mindful of. Not just because it gives us a pathway into the floodlights and us into hopefully better opportunities, but it is just vital that kids are given a chance to put on a Largs jersey at an early age, and that are given a sense of pride in the club, and they want to play for the club. And if not, if they don't play for the club, that they pay their money and come back and watch us when they're a bit older. And I think that, because without that sense of community, I think that any football club at this level ceases to exist, and ceases to exist very, very quickly. So again, you've caught us in a somewhat transitional period, but certainly something that, again, it was at the forefront of what we spoke about tonight, and it'll be the forefront of what we speak about going forward. And as I say, not just for the benefits that gives the men's first team on and off the park, but just the benefit it just generally brings to town.
Oh, good stuff. What's the management setup? You can name drop a few people here if you want, from the management and coaches.
So, God, it's trying to not forget people, and this is the thing. So, Stuart Davidson, who's been the first team manager for, let me just double check. If I get the year wrong, Arnie. So his nickname is Arnie from his somewhat I was going to say aggressive playing style, but nonetheless. So Stuart took over in October 2016 from co-managing with Bryan Slavin and that was just a period again. Brian, who's our previous manager, done fantastic things as well. Up until that point, we were somewhat of a yo-yo club, and again, we'll come back to talk about the functions and how the leagues work. But we sort of sit between what they call the West of Scotland Premier League and what was the West of Scotland Championship / First Division. It's been a million names, but we are sort of down in the Championship for a bit, then back up, and then down again, and then back up. So, but I think Arnie's really brought that period of stability that I think that we're all looking after. So we've managed to keep Premier League status now for a number of years. That's the aim again this year, and so far so good. And in terms of backroom staff, so we've got Andrew Scott. So Andrew is the son of Derek, who, as I mentioned at the top of the show, was kind of got me involved back in the club. So Andrew's his son, and actually Andrew's son himself, Ryan, was the chairman as well for a period, and also done a good job. So the three of them are a real family unit and a real family club. Derek's wife Joyce still works the club. She was down helping, feeding the players their food tonight as well. She's helps out. She does a lot. So as a family, really, really involved in the club, and they do more than their fair share. And I suppose that's if we don't edit anything out of this, then I'd say to keep that in. They do far, far more than their fair share, and I don't think they quite understand how much that we all appreciate. We all appreciate that effort, and how much the club wouldn't be there, or certainly wouldn't be in the great a state as it is, or as good a state as it is, without that. And we've recently just on board. So not too long ago, we took in. So we've got a goalkeeping coach now. It's Alan Hamilton. He's just recently joined us, so not been in through the door. Certainly not as long as Arnie and Andy have. And Andy, what we get from the goalkeeping coach is not only top quality goalkeeping coach, but I think the fans can all agree that you've probably got the funniest person at the club there as well. So I really lights up a match day. And I don't know whether it's he can't sit still or he won't sit still, but he's over chatting to you and talking to the fans and talking to opposition fans, and it's just a real handful, I think, for MD. So that's it. That's our sort of backroom stuff. They're all brilliant, and obviously we've got physios. So we've got Dev and Caitlin who have really added a lot in. So again, we went through a period of not having a physio, which in this level of competition is frankly not great. But Dev and Caitlin do again amazing work, and they make sure the players are well seen to and looked after, and that we're putting through proper sort of rehabilitation and route back to fitness for a lot of players that wouldn't have really got that maybe a couple of seasons ago, or at a time we didn't have a fixed physio. So really happy to have from Arnie down, and I'm sure if Arnie wouldn't mind us singing his background more than himself, because I think it is a unit, and you can tell that they are a strong unit together, and they work. I think that's the thing, is that they just all do work together and work for each other, and that's always pleasing to see.
Oh, good stuff. Now touching on the league first before we get on to the promotion and relegation. Now the West of Scotland Football League Premier Division, which you're in, I'm looking at it now. Yep. You're sitting 10th, and it's quite evident that it's very close between a lot of teams. After 14, 15, 16 games, say, there's not much between the bottom three right up to third, to be honest. Well, if you take off, say, maybe from your position up over, it's very it's a 1 win or 2 win in your 2 wins in your promote up the league quite a distance.
It has the potential. So I mean, again, I think this is, I don't know if it's my pessimism, or if this is a view shared by other fans, but it's a league where you look at every month and you just think individual months make or break you. A 4-weekend stretch of games could define your entire season. We look back at last season, so the league had a slightly different setup last season, whereby it relegated 8 teams. It relegated nearly half the league, and that was part of a restructuring. So there was real danger to go there. And we had the February last year from hell, really. I think we lost 3 games in a row, 3-2, and that's what happens in this league. If you lose 3 games in a row, you start to feel the heat. And then, but conversely, if you win 3 games in a row, you really don't feel the heat. You sit in 6th or 7th, and you're quite happy to be up there. But if you look at the league table as it is just now, I mean, us in Glenafton, we beat Glenafton on the 30th of December of last year, and that was a tight game, and we drew with them at home. So to see us sitting there neck and neck is no mean surprise. And we beat Cumnock, again, the team above them, on Saturday past. It is very, very tight. And then, as I say, if you look at the table the way it is just now, I mean, I only need to tell you, if you just look at the snippet from where we are, we've got Petershill on Friday night. We've got Arthurlie at home next Saturday. Then we've got Clydebank at home the following Saturday, and I've got Petershill at home the following Saturday. So 3 home games in a row. You can really see when you look at the positions of those teams and the points how massive that is as a month.
Yeah, definitely, because the teams below you as well have got games in hand. So as well. So. Yeah,
but you don't get easy ones. This is the thing: is you never get a week off. There is no run of games where you sort of go, oh well, we can see that there will be 2 or 3 wins in a row there. It just feels like every team in the league brings a really, really high level of competition, and there's not been, particularly this season. I've not seen Petershill yet, but I'm sure they won't be any different from any of the rest of them. There has not been a team that you haven't said that was competitive, that was a good game. They're not always one for the football purists. If your thing is the La Liga Sunday show, maybe it's not for you, but it is the competitive games, and every game feels like a cup final. You can tell the intensity of them. You can tell the 22 players on the pitch, whether it's Cambuslang playing Beith or whether it's Hurlford playing Irvine Meadow. Or it doesn't matter how far apart the teams are. I mean, yeah, like any other league, you obviously do get your teams walking into the 5, 6, 7s every now and then, but for the most part, absolutely nothing's taken for granted. I mean, even if you look at Beith, they've dropped points in a third of their games, which, strictly speaking, in most other leagues in the world isn't championship form at all. But certainly does put you top of the league here, and that's testament to only having lost 3 games out of 15 played in this league, and it's good. Yeah. And for some people would say that's not so great. That's good. So that's where we are.
Right, moving on to this promotion relegation, because I've spoken to some teams. I interviewed teams in the East of Scotland Football League, and the one thing I don't really agree with is that the team that wins the league has to then play a promotion spot to get promoted. Yes. I just think if you win that league, you should get promoted. Personally, that's my personal view.
I think as part of, and we can spend some time on the Lowland League if we get to it. I think as part of a general principle of football, and it's one since I've long agreed, long before they opened, or quote unquote, opened up League Two and the bottom of Scottish football, the trapdoor, as they called it when they did open it. I've long since believed that there's lots of teams in our league are better than the elite teams in League Two. And as a general point of principle, if you win your league, you should go up, unless you're in the top league. And by virtue of being in the top league, you also get a prize, whether it's European football or whatever it may be across the world. You are rewarded by more than a league trophy at the end of the season. No matter what league you win, you're given, and always given, at least the carrot of some more Premier competition until you reach the very, very top. And I think for it to have went on as long as it did, to me, isn't right. I see that, and it's not easy. It's not hard to see where the ulterior motives lie as to why you can't win the league and go straight up. I think Darvel, like or dislike the project Darvel run, they did win the league. They won it well. They're a good team. If you can see that from results, not just against Aberdeen. I mean, Aberdeen's just the cherry on top of a long process that Mick Kennedy and John Gall and the rest of the boys at Darvel have been on, and that will always be obviously the cherry on top. I suppose they'll never reach those heights on a consistent basis, so certainly we'll have to dig this podcast out in 2043 to talk about that. But I think what that does gloss over, what I end up having to say to people, whether it be at work or just talking to them in the pub, is that this was something that you can see Auchinleck beating your United. That's this team in our league had to beat a championship club. Darvel themselves have beat other clubs, I think, at Montrose and Elgin, and I think there's maybe another couple of ones. So you see that there's not many times actually they've come up against teams in the league above and not done that. And I think, as you say, where the fundamental issue is that you can't say the same for the teams that sit in the Lowland League. So yes, there are sums and there are times where teams in the Lowland League can spring surprises, but on the whole, I think it's fair to say that they don't often spring as many upper sort of Premier, so not Premier League, because there's only been one of those, but sort of established Championship to League Two upsets as teams in the east of Scotland and the west of Scotland are. So I think by what they've done there is protected their own self-interest by making sure that for a Darvel or for, I mean, Shannon went up last year, but for whether it's Darvel or Linlithgow Rose or Auchinleck Talbot or Clydebank or whoever it is in years to come, that blocking that by using that weird three-way divisional playoff and then having to play off again just defeats the purpose of football and competition, I think.
So how does the three-way playoff work then? 3 teams for the one. How does that work?
A three-way round robin.
Right.
So essentially, the winner of our league will play the winner of the East. So essentially, and I don't know whether this is by virtue of common sense or this is the way we were saying, but the south of Scotland, which is traditionally the least strong, the West and the East champions get a shot at them first and then play each other. But I say I don't know. I'd scratch my head as to whether that was intentional or not. It certainly would seem to be the smartest way to do it. But that, again, in turn, is disrespectful, as I have just been, to the South of Scotland League. And I don't mean that with any real malice, but the results prove that. I think they were quite bad. And then I think when you see as well, there is the Strathclyde Demolition Cup, which is another cup tournament that they run here. And you can see from, I think, the result in the cup final, that's for Drumchapel, who are in the league below Largs. They recently went out of the Scottish Cup to Elgin, and they qualified for that by virtue of winning this Strathclyde Demolition Cup. I think they beat the team from the south of Scotland 6 or 7-1 in the final. So until the results prove me wrong, I think I'm probably safe to say that's probably the least competitive one out of the 3 of them. So they play each other a 3-way round robin, and then the winner goes on his merry way. And one team from the Lowland League come down.
Yeah. I mean, obviously we'll know the system before the season starts, but I can't think of anything more demoralising if you totally batter your league, finish top, and then people might say, well, you should be good enough to beat the other team, but it's a one-off. Well, I'm talking about one-off matches then. If you've played your heart out all season, won the league, and then for whatever reason you might have an off day against your team in the other league, and then you've got to start another season and think.
Well, I think, I don't want to turn this into the Darvel podcast, but I think if you were to ask their manager, Mick, he's been on national radio, national TV since beating Aberdeen, and he's first to say that the league's the big thing. He doesn't want to stop there, because I think that result did hurt them, because particularly in the space of the West of Scotland League, they won the league in the last day of the season, and there was a lot of signalling from the club around the direction of which they were going, which they were in which they were positive was up, and not going up obviously opened them up to ridicule from some corner of social media. Probably maybe in some people's cases deserved, but nonetheless, as you say, and as I agree with, if you win the league, you should go up. So, as much as I did have, and again, not the club talking, Alex Anderson talking, as much as I personally had a bit of a giggle at them not going up, they should have went up. That's the be all and end all.
One thing I want to talk about before we run out of time is your fans and your supporters. I don't know what your sort of fan base you have on a weekend or on a match day.
So we tend to take in the low hundreds in a match day, but on our day. So again, when people talk about our league, they talk about a certain couple of clubs, whether that's Auchinleck or Cumnock or Clydebank, Beith, Kilbirnie. On our day, we can get massive support into those grounds. I think fair weather fan culture is a part and parcel with non-league. and I just wish that as part of, I suppose it's part of my job now as a committee member, is to try and encapsulate those big days, keep people coming along, because you know what, Lark, you've been to Alice yourself. A sunny day it doesn't need to be a big game. It doesn't need to be a cup final. It just needs to be something. It needs to be a sunny day, an Old Firm game happening on a Sunday instead of a Saturday. Maybe a big game mixed in there. It just has to be something, and then people seem to turn out. It's the keeping them out that needs to do that, and I think that's the thing. But what I will say, the people that do turn up are a great bunch of fans. I think that their loyalty is unquestionable. I think when we maybe didn't look as if we were down and out at the end of last season, we had to go on a 10-match winning streak to still not just ultimately stay up. We finished mid-table, but that shows you what a 10-game undefeated streak can do. But those fans were there from that disastrous February right through to the end. And when we take low hundreds at home, we will take a vast percentage of our home crowd will come on the road with us wherever we go. So I do notice that for some teams, I don't name names, that's obviously disrespectful to name names, but for some teams that maybe have a bigger home crowd than us, you do find them come to Barrfields, and unless it's a sunny day, everybody loves to come down for fish and chips and a pint of beer and whatnot. But unless it's that, they will bring 20, 30 fans, and we will always bring more than much more than that. I think on Saturday, I was actually taken aback on Saturday because I don't know how well versed you are in Ayrshire geography, but we had Auchinleck midweek on last week, and then we had Cumnock on the Saturday. So that is 2 massive away trips down to deepest, darkest Ayrshire, as they say, a sort of 1.5 hour car journey away. And they've done it twice in a week. And I think, and especially after losing the first game 3-0 on the Wednesday. So, but where we lack in sort of sizable numbers, and by all means, we're not the smallest. We're not the smallest support in the league. Certainly not the smallest support in the pyramid. But what we lack in terms of that big weekly turnover, the ones that do come are extremely loyal when they don't miss it, and we're not one for. But then I suppose I'm going to say this if it's a trait unique to Largs, we're not one for wanting managers sacked or wanting players booted out. There seems to be a general feeling that we're all pulling in the one direction, which I think the manager appreciates. I think the players appreciate it, because you do go to the games. I mean, you know what it's like in non-league. Players hear everything, managers hear everything, and I go to away games and I hear, particularly teams don't like us beating them. So I hear every week that we do win, you hear that sort of those sort of comments directed at players and managers, and I just don't think you hear as much of it. I'm not saying you never hear it. I'm sure Arnie could come on and tell you. There's maybe a couple of times I've maybe lambasted a player for maybe not making a diagonal pass or something wrong, but by and large, we're never standing at the gate shouting and bawling, or whenever they always seem to give that a level of respect to players and management.
Great stuff. And I'm going to shout your links out, largsthistle.org.uk and Larg Thistle FC on Largs Thistle FC on Twitter, which is yourself doing that. Come along if you love really, really bad jokes. That's what you'll find them any Saturday between 2 and 3:45. I tend to crack the same ones every week. And if you like chips, cheese and curry sauce, I can tell you what grounds do the best ones and what grounds don't do the best ones. The trick is if I don't mention it, then it's not been great. So and just on the website as well, we have a new member of the committee, Drew, who has just joined tonight, and he is working on a new website, so there'll be a new one of those coming. But it should still just follow the same URL. So thanks very much for putting those out, and hopefully see more people come and listen to my rubbish between 1 o'clock and 4 o'clock every Saturday. No, it's been great talking to you and to find out about the club, which I didn't know anything about before tonight. So, been great.
You know less now.
No. No, I know a lot more. But thanks for coming on.
No, thanks very much for having me. Nope, and you're welcome anytime.
Thank you.